Matt Walker explains how we can reorganize memories with sleep.
We've also gone on to demonstrate that the reason that you're seemingly so much better the next day is because sleep has actually reorganized where that memory is within the brain. And so what we actually did was, using this brain imaging technology that's come about in the last 10 years, we trained subjects on these motor memory tasks. And then after 12 hours following the day or following a night of sleep, we bring them back, wedge them inside the MRI scanner, and take snapshots of brain activity as they're recalling these motor memories. And so we can map, as it were, where in the brain they're recollecting those memories from, following wake and following sleep, and then we compare the two to see if there's a difference. And what you find is that following sleep compared to wake, there are regions within the brain that show significantly increased activity, and these hotspot blobs that you're looking at here, significantly greater activity and a larger spread of activity. The take-home message here is that sleep seems to be causing a shift in the neural architecture of where memories are. And it's this sort of real estate transaction at night, sleep actually placing memories into more perhaps efficient storage locations, changing the geography of information within the brain. That may be the reason that you come back the next day and you can access and output those memories that much more quickly and accurately. Sleep can do so much more than that. Sleep can actually go beyond strengthening individual memories to intelligently figure out how they should all be linked together. And this is a concept in neuroscience that has been termed relational memory. And one of the tests that psychologists have sort of designed to try and get at this concept is called the Transitive Inference task. And so you as a subject will actually have to learn a series of premises. So for example, you'll have to learn that object A should be chosen over object B, whatever these objects are. Whereas object B should be chosen over object C. C over D, D over E, and E over F, so on and so forth. But in addition to those individual memories, you also may have realized that there's something greater to extract from this experience, which is in fact that there is an overarching hierarchy here, which is that A is greater than B is greater than C, D, E, and F. Now, to test whether subjects have not only learned the individual memories, but have actually started to put them and stitch them all together, we actually probe them on what we call inference pairs. So for example, you could show them the BD pair. Now, they've never learned the answer to this, but if they've understood that B wins out over C and C wins out over D, then they should presumably choose B over D. It's what we call a 1-degree separation inference pair. You're leaping over C to get to D, as it were. So there's another 1-degree inference pair that you can actually test them on, which is the CE pair. But if you're feeling sort of really windswept and exotic and you want to sort of push the associational boat further down that memory chain, you can test them on the more non-obvious, more distantly related 2-degree inference pair, which is the BE pair. It's a more sort of spread apart associational memory judgment, as it were. Now, just so you know what we were using in this task, the objects that we created were these fractal images. These are really quite pretty pictures. They're created from mathematical equations. And we used them because we wanted people not to have any familiarity with the objects that we were using, so they didn't have any pre-existing biases. The question really then becomes, when does relational memory emerge? Is it sort of as though the brain just requires, as soon as it's grabbed all of the informational pieces that it needs, it's instantly put them together? Or is it more like good cooking, that perhaps it's not enough to chop up all of the ingredients and put them in the pan and call that a good soup? Maybe the brain needs time to sort of marinate and blend those ingredients together. And to examine that possibility, we trained subjects on those individual premise pairs, the item memories, and then after some set delay, we brought them back and we tested them to see how well they remembered the individual memories, but then we also tested them on those inference judgments, those associational memory judgments. Now, in one group of participants, that delay was just 20 minutes, whilst in another group, it was actually 12 hours across the day, and in another group, it was 12 hours containing a full night of sleep. If we now look at how well subjects were retaining those individual memories, the pieces of the jigsaw, as it were, at 20 minutes later or 12 hours later, across the day, across wake or following sleep, what we see is that everyone has retained those individual memories to a high degree of proficiency and an equal degree of proficiency. The question is, have they actually put it together? And to answer that question, we go to the inference per performance. And as you'll remember, we spoke about the 1 degree, the sort of more easy inference judgment, and the 2 degree, the more non-obvious one. So if we look in the 20-minute group, what we see is that they're at chance. They're equally likely to pick the wrong item over the right item. They're equally likely to pick D over B, as it were. They just don't seem to have gotten it yet. Whereas in the 2 12-hour groups, actually irrespective of wake or sleep, they're both significantly above chance. So somewhere between 20 minutes and 12 hours, your brain has started to perform this sort of synthetic trick of memory assimilation. But here's the interesting twist. If you look at the 2 degree inference performance, again in the 20-minute group, they're at chance. In the 12-hour wake group, they're a little lower, but not significantly. But yet in the 12-hour sleep group, they are disproportionately better. It's almost as though sleep is preferentially biasing the brain towards building and seeking out more distant, non-obvious connections. And I think it's exactly what we experience in the subjective sense of what we call dreams. But sort of, I would almost liken this to when you fuse 2 items together that shouldn't normally go together, but cause some vast evolutionary advantage in fitness, it starts to sound very much like the basis of creativity. And I think that's one of the possible functions of sleeping and perhaps even dreaming. And so it's almost as though you go to sleep with the pieces of the jigsaw, but you wake up, as it were, with the puzzle complete.